Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the latest gaming hardware. I'm Damon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of Podcast Unlocked, and Max Scoville, host of Podcast Beyond. And we arrive at the final episode of the year. It's time to take stock of what games really impressed us in 2025. What were the most next-gen looking current-gen games? We're 5 years into the console generation. Developers should have a pretty good grasp on what the PS5 and Xbox can do by now. This is usually when we start seeing the most visually striking games in a console's life cycle. So let's bounce back and forth between Ryan and Max. Ryan, what's your first pick for most next-gen game of 2025?
Well, the first thing that jumped to mind, and by the way, congrats to you, Damon. This is year 6. We've now been doing this show for 6 years. We've almost come full circle. We're about to, we kind of have with the Switch.
Watching the next gen again.
Yeah, I love it. I'm thrilled to be here and still be a part of this thing. The first game that came to mind for me was Doom: The Dark Ages on the Xbox side. Not an exclusive, certainly. I've got a couple exclusives and a couple of third parties on my list, but Doom was a game that, I mean, it's maybe not necessarily jaw-droppingly stunning, but it looks so good and runs so well. It's kind of just an overall really clean, efficient package from a technological standpoint, where and it's id Tech. I think it's id Tech. They up to id Tech 8 now, but that engine has just been rock solid. It's just offers great performance, great visuals. There's a ton going on in the backgrounds in Doom: The Dark Ages. You know, it's a kind of a larger scale. It's very much an outdoor game, and it just, I mean, the art direction certainly factors in too, but yeah, I mean, for me, Doom: The Dark Ages was definitely one of the better looking games of the year. It would definitely make my short list of next gennies.
Yeah, it's got ray trace lighting. You talk about the background scenes. There's always just like a giant demon battle happening while you're blasting the demons in front of you. And I played on a base PS5. It ran great. Ran mostly 60 frames per second. It would dip occasionally if the end of the scene got too crowded. But for the most part, 60 frames per second. Very, very cool. Good-looking game. Doom: The Dark Ages. Max, what's your first pick?
I was also very fond of Doom: The Dark Ages. A very, very good game. Also, it just felt good. You know,
feels great.
I feel like that's not so much a tech thing as it is a design thing and really just fine tuning it. But it's always been on top of that. As for next gen stuff, I want to say Death Stranding too. I think there's a specific part in there is the opening sequences. I remember watching that and being initially kind of blown away at how photorealistic it was, and then almost sort of bored by it because it was so photorealistic that I thought I was looking at stock footage. And the last time that happened was in the end credits for the second Avatar movie, where they're showing the footage of the space whales jumping around. And I just kind of like, oh, it's just nature footage. And I'm like, wait, that's not a real animal. And same deal with Death Stranding, where I was like, yep, they certainly got some drone footage. And I was like, no, that's a video game. How did they do that? And yeah, I mean, to have the incredible landscapes and wide shots and beautiful scenery, but then also these really intense up close photorealistic performances of some great actors. And the thing that I do appreciate is it also, there's realism, but there's also sort of a layer of surrealism over it, because you've got this incredible Yoji Shinkawa character design, and just everything in here is just designed to high hell, which, again, not a technology standpoint, but it's really cool to see that coupled with the hardware being really pushed this far and really taken full advantage of.
It's the Decima engine, right, from Guerrilla Games?
It is, yeah. I remember there was a whole big thing where Kojima was basically shopping around and courting different studios, and allegedly Herman Hulst, who's now in charge of PlayStation Studios, gave him the Decima engine on a flash drive in a box and presented it to him. I think that happened. I don't know if I dreamed that, but again, like, Kojima's really been putting it through its paces, and the results speak for themselves. Like, even if this isn't your cup of tea in terms of gameplay, it is stunning to look at, and I'm really, really interested in seeing what he does with Unreal, which is what OD is in. Isn't that right?
Correct. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's always known how to get really cool performance out of whatever hardware he's working with, and this showed that off for sure.
I had the same moment in the opening scenes of Death Stranding 2. I was like, did Kojima just go film a bunch of mountains? But I think it's just the Decima engine is that good, and Kojima's that good at getting the best out of the engine. All right, Ryan, next pick.
Well, I'll go from the monsters of hell to something far more grounded and realistic. I was blown away by the visuals in Mafia: The Old Country. Excellent game as well. And I feel like maybe kind of overlooked. I mean, it reviewed well. People seem to like it, but I don't feel like it's not really getting its flowers. So I wanted to give it some flowers now. This is a game that actually switched to Unreal. Used to be on a proprietary engine for earlier games in the series, but this is on Unreal now. And boy, does it look fantastic. The Italian countrysides are just spectacular as you're driving through them. The individual set pieces are great. I don't think I've ever seen fruit rendered better on trees everywhere. Like, it sounds silly to say that, but this game really did a great job of capturing like the Italian countryside, I thought. And it just, the skyboxes look gorgeous in this game. The characters all look great too. So, you know, tip of the cap to the folks that developed Mafia: The Old Country. I believe it's the Hangar 13 folks, if I remember correctly. Yeah. They did a just fantastic job on the tech side of this game.
I want to call something out there. Like you raise a very good point. Like the details in something like a piece of fruit is something that I always kind of like look at to sort of benchmark like where a studio's priorities are, because, you know, everybody wants to make stuff that looks cool in a video game. You know, I mean, some games, that's all that is in front of you. Like Doom, for instance, is entirely style, entirely, you know, looks like high-res versions of a angry teenager's notebook scribblings. And I mean that lovingly, of course. But like, I love when games create the kind of stuff that you would be doing a still life painting of in an art class. Like it's really, you know, it's, I remember there was a thing that Kojima did when he was first showing off the Fox engine back at Konami, where he rendered his conference room in the engine and put it side by side with a photo of his actual conference room. And it was just, it's the most boring thing you could possibly render in this engine. And sure enough, he made much cooler stuff in there, but committing to that detail of something that is kind of mundane and ordinary, and really looking at that and being like, oh, that's what it looks like. You did your homework. You ate your vegetables. You didn't just eat your dessert, you know?
Yeah, this game, every time I see it, I think, wow, this looks really great. But like Ryan was saying, I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but hopefully over the holiday break, I'll get a chance to play Mafia. Max, what's your next pick?
Now, another historical fiction piece is the first of two samurai games we got to talk about, which is Assassin's Creed Shadows. I mean, again, we've been getting Assassin's Creed games at a pretty steady clip for a while now. And Ubisoft eventually kind of pumped the brakes, and this is really the first actually dedicated, well, I guess current gen now, Assassin's Creed game, because the last two were cross-gen, I believe, and they certainly they did their homework. They put a lot of work into this game. It is a massive game, and it is spectacular to look at. And there's so many little tiny details in there. Like the destruction is great. I think one of my favorite features was just, for lack of a better word, Kool-Aid manning your way through the paper walls whenever given the chance. But the weather was great. I love that the stealth was, I feel like, modern stealth, but it had a kind of old school sensibility, and that, like, if you're in the shadows, you're invisible. And there was something very kind of, brought me back to former eras of stealth games. But back then we didn't have HDR lighting, so it really felt like they actually literally put a lot of effort into the shadows here, which was neat. And just, again, the sheer scope of it. I remember there's an instance of riding through the forest on a horse, and then they're like, I'll cut through some bamboo over here, and there was so much bamboo on screen I couldn't see where the hell I was going.
Oh yeah.
Which is a good problem to have in a game like this. It's kind of cool to have that much foliage rendered, even if it is a little bit inconvenient. But that's what a real forest would be like, you know?
Yeah. Maybe the densest foliage I've seen in a video game. And you're right about the destruction. Like, if there's like a cloth or a canvas or a flag, you can slice it, and it'll slice exactly the way it's supposed to. Same with like a bamboo basket or something. There's a real simulation happening there. It's very, very cool stuff. You mentioned that's the first of two samurai games. Let's just do the second samurai game back to back, Max.
Sure, Ghost of Yōtei. Obviously, there's going to be comparisons drawn there. Worth noting that I think Shadows was made with a development team of like 10 times the size of Sucker Punch. Like it's a team of in the thousands, whereas Sucker Punch is a relatively small studio in terms of Sony's first party teams. But they did not slack off. They showed off what they were doing here. Again, very gorgeous game. And I feel like, what it was lacking in terms of technical capability, if that was even an issue, it more than made up for with how it applied things stylistically. We did an interview with Jason Connell, who's now one of the co-heads of Sucker Punch, and he was pointing out how like they were never trying to make this you know, photorealistic exactly. It was always kind of good. There was always gonna be like an element of style to it. You know, they wanted to capture the essence of Hokkaido rather than the actual place, what it's like. You know, it's kind of these big sprawling fields of beautiful flowers, and really it's very kind of these painterly landscapes, which were just, I mean, it's such a cool game to just really get lost in. And I think that's the key way to approach it. Like it's about being a wandering samurai, you know, like it's about really kind of getting lost in there. And you know, again, great attention to detail, wonderful looks on the character models and all that, all the detail, going in photo mode and like punching in and seeing the individual stitching on, you know, any part of Atsu's many outfits is just kind of stunning to look at. The thing that jumped out at me is there's these instances where, you know, you visit her, you know, childhood home, where you kind of have these flashback moments, and it does that wonderful instantaneous thing where it's got both things running at the same time, and you just instantly pop back to this alternate version of where you are. And that's one of those, it's a little bit gimmicky, but I feel like that was one of those things that was shown off early on with the PS5 as being like one of its things. Is you just, you know, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart really took full advantage of that, having you just immediately in a different place basically. And this would just, you know, at the touch of a button, you're just in a different time period, and your home looks very different, and Atsu looks very different, and everything looks very different. And it's just kind of cool to have that running at the same time. And I thought that was, you know, great showcase of the PS5. And again, nice to have a proper PS5 exclusive.
Yeah, at least they got one out this year. I loved this game. It's very impressive. And I think I mentioned it at the time it was out. I cut down an enemy in a stream. He fell into the water, and then his blood came out cloudy and just sort of floated downstream, the most realistic way that I've ever seen in a game. So very, very cool stuff happening under the hood with Ghost of Yōtei. All right, Ryan, you have a game on your list that until we had our pre-pro meeting for this, I hadn't even heard of before. But tell us about Routine and why it's so impressive.
Well, it's I saved my 2 Xbox exclusives for last year. Routine is a game that's very recent, just came out earlier this month. It is an Xbox exclusive. It's on PC as well, of course, but this one, it's Unreal Engine 5. Routine has a weird development story, in that it's been in development on and off for over 10 years, but they finally got it to the finish line. We had a bunch of exclusive coverage on this in November, and that's really what kind of drew my eye to it on a more, you know, kind of a closer look. And this game, it's just got that sort of sterile tech. It's set on a lunar base in a sort of 1980s version of the future. All the tech in the game is reflective of that. And just the way that the environments are rendered in this game, it really sells the look and the vibe of it, the tone of the game really exceptionally well. Your sort of main tool that you're using to kind of scan the environment is this. It almost looks like a bastardized version of a VHS like camcorder, but again, like 80s tech evolved. And so it blended retro and future tech in a really visually interesting way that's also just visually gorgeous too. So this is one where, again, I know we've had a really busy year, ton of games, and this one only just came out a couple weeks ago. It's not a super big game in terms of, you know, how long it would take you to go through. Give it a look if you're into first person scary spooky games. This one will serve you well, and it looks gorgeous in the process.
Yeah, I will give this one a look. This one looks right up my alley. I'm glad it's on my radar now. Max, what's your final pick?
Battlefield 6. I want to give it just a little bit of cred there. It's I think, you know, EA and DICE have never made ugly games. They've always made really impressive looking stuff. You know, gave us the Frostbite engine. Battlefield 6 just, I mean, it literally blows the doors off of what we've seen before. The amount of destruction in this. I mean, you can make a building fall over. They've had this in the past, but the sheer I guess volume and variation of just, you know, destructibility in this game is just really, really stunning. And I think on a similar note to kind of what we get with Doom is that, yeah, it's visually stunning and it's got this great amount of detail, but it's also just running smoothly, and it's functional, like everything feels, despite the fact that you can break everything. I have had not really any occasions where things have broken, and it's kind of impressive to have something that is this high fidelity running that smoothly, and you know keeping a decent clip. And I'm sure there's, I've run into the occasional like ragdoll weirdness, but it's a generally pretty polished experience, or at least I've found it to be that, and that's pretty cool. I know that EA's had some rough Battlefield launches over the years, and this one definitely doesn't seem to be the case. It's currently the best-selling game of the year, so people seem to be having a good time with it.
Yeah, I know you were reporting that on the Fix this week, that it seems like it's looking like Battlefield 6 is going to end up outselling Call of Duty Black Ops 7, which is pretty wild and hasn't happened in quite some time. Ryan, what would be your final pick for most next-gen game of 2025?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm glad Max mentioned Battlefield 6, because I would have if he hadn't. If we were to pick one, if we were to all vote on one, I would probably vote for Battlefield 6 as the most next-gen looking game of the year. But in the interest of showing some love to some other games, I've got one other Xbox exclusive in mind, and that's Keeper. Granted, the art direction is really doing a lot of beautiful, brilliant work here, but it does all sort of congeal into this just visually spectacular. It's not quite a walking sim, but it's also not quite a puzzle game. It sort of lives somewhere in between there. And I think it took me about 5, maybe 6 hours to get through this, but it tells a story without any dialogue. It is absolutely one of the most visually unique games I've ever played. But every section of the game visually looks different. So your eyes are never bored by what's going on. You shouldn't really be bored when you're controlling a sentient lighthouse, but yeah, it is just the use of color in this, the use of both outdoor and indoor environments. There's so much beauty in this game on a sort of creative art directive level, but also just on a technical level too. We were talking about giant creatures in the background. Well, this game's got those too in a particularly unique way. I don't really want to spoil, but there's the flora and fauna here, which are again not set in our Earth necessarily, are just, or at least not in our time, are just so spectacular to look at as you make your way through this adventure, that from a next gen perspective, again, another Unreal Engine 5 here. I think I don't know what the count is. It's at least 2 or 3 of the games that we've talked about have been Unreal Engine, but this is another one that just looks tremendously good.
And this is Double Fine?
It is Double Fine.
Interesting.
What's worth noting about that, this is the first Double Fine game, I believe, that's been entirely developed since Microsoft acquired them. So this is Double Fine being like, okay, we've got some more support here. What can we do? And they made a game about a lighthouse that's friends with a bird, which is pretty cool. I know that there's sometimes people level a complaint at Unreal 5 games is that they look like Unreal 5 games. This one doesn't look really like anything else. So it certainly looks unreal in some sense of the word. But yeah, it's cool to see such a fun studio continuing to make great weird stuff like that.
Well, those are our picks for the most next-gen games of 2025, but what are your picks? Let us know in the comments. And now we cast our gaze into 2026. We'll be taking the next couple weeks off for the holidays, but we will return in the new year when it will be time to discuss our most anticipated upcoming games. So to that end, we want to know what you're most looking forward to playing. You can vote on this week's poll. What is your most anticipated game of 2026 that isn't GTA 6? Because if we included that, that's just what would win. So something else. Resident Evil, Wolverine, 007 First Light, Tomb Raider, Legacy of Atlantis, Gears of War E-Day, Lego Batman. Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live. We'll share the results with you, the first episode in the new year, just like we can with last episode's poll. We were talking about the Game Awards. We asked, what's your favorite announcement from the Game Awards 2025? The clear winner with 53% of the vote was Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic. It wasn't even close. The coming in second was Divinity with 18% of the vote. So far and away, people were most excited for Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic. But I think we were talking about this. I think we're all feeling a little bit cautiously optimistic, right? Because I don't know. There's just kind of a lot of nostalgic baggage comes with the Knights of the Old Republic, and now Casey Housen's saying the game will actually be out sooner than we think. But how is that possible if even like a game like Ghost of Yōtei takes 5 years? I don't know. Max, Ryan, what do you think?
I feel like cautiously optimistic is not.
Generous.
I think realistically skeptical is more appropriate here, because it's just it feels like both too long to make a game and not long enough. If that makes sense, they got to build a whole RPG from the ground up, and
they just started their studio a few months ago.
Exactly. Yeah, they got to buy office chairs still.
I have 3 words: Star Wars Eclipse.
Oh,
Anybody remember that?
I thought
announcement?
I thought this is what this was going to be when we saw this trailer.
Hey, I got 4 words: Star Wars KOTOR remake.
Yep.
There you go.
Or that's maybe 5 with a hyphen. I don't know, but yeah, that's.
KOTOR is my favorite RPG of all time, and so of course I want this to be amazing. But yeah, it's we'll see you, Casey Hudson, sir. We will see you on the PlayStation 6 and Xbox PC hybrid thing. We'll see you then, buddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's especially for Star Wars. I think I feel like there's this intersection of BioWare, which is, again, it's been a cool minute since we got a Mass Effect game. It's been even longer since we got a Mass Effect game people really loved. Dragon Age Inquisition took 11 years or something like that. They remade it 2.5 times behind the scenes, and then you couple that with Star Wars, which how many Star Wars movies have been announced and then unannounced or canceled? Like it just feels like it's a sort of this composite of just all these things coming together, and that's you pair that with the long tail of AAA game development, and it's just I want to be excited about a new Star Wars game, but I feel like I've just been burned so many times.
Well, I would like nothing more than Fate of the Old Republic to turn out incredible. So here's wishing them the best. And that's our show. That's our year in next-gen console watching. Thank you to Max and Ryan for being my co-hosts on the show. Thank you to all of you out there watching us all year long. Like Ryan was saying at the top of the show, we started this in early 2020 as an election coverage style show that would lead up to the release of the PS5 and Xbox Series, and that would be it. But you made this show so successful, we had to keep it going, and here we are 6 years later, still going strong. So huge thanks and happy holidays to everyone tuning in. Big thank you to everyone working behind the scenes to make this show possible. My name is Damon, and we will see you in the new year. This episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by myself, Damon Hatfield, and Jobert Atienza. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network.